Thanks everyone for joining. We'll just give it a minute or so. We'd love to hear if you are battling snow, snowstorm, ice storm, challenges. Obviously you've got power because you're with us right now, but pop in the chat where you are and what the weather's like while we're waiting to get started. I'm in Orlando and it is sunny.
I'm looking out, I'm here in Toronto, Canada, and I am looking out into this fresh, huge snowfall, and it's minus 15 degrees with the wind chill in Celsius. I don't know what the conversion is in Fahrenheit, but it's just really cold, trust me.
Oh, you are just like the trooper when it comes to snowy weather, right? You're just so used to it.
I'm a true Canadian.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Ivan. Very cold in Slovakia. Oh, goodness. I never think of Slovakia as being super cold. But of course, yes, you have seasons. And Pat, 9 inches in Indy. Yeah, Dwight's in Orlando, like me. We are going to make a start. And because I am conscious that some people that did sign up originally can't join us because of the weather. This is recorded. When we have smaller groups like we have today, I really encourage you to participate because there's a smaller group and your voice will definitely be heard. And we encourage you to participate in one of two ways: through chat and just type in whenever you're ready. I will keep a close eye on chat. And at some point, I will see if I know how to bring everyone off mute a little later on so you can talk to us as well. Okay, first of all, welcome Coach Dana to join us on this webinar today. It's the second in a group of webinars that are focused on team performance. Now, we originally called it a series, but each of them are in a standalone. So although they're all about team performance, each webinar is focused on a different approach to improving teams. And so feel free to join us for the others as well. So what our aim is to focus on today are the following learning objectives so that you walk away with clarity on what team coaching is, why it's growing in the world of business and coaching, and the value of it. What execs in HR, who are usually the sponsors and kick off and sort of put the approval behind team coaching, what they're looking for. Like, how do we serve the sponsors and what do we hear is important to them? Then we'll look at something that actually I've learned a lot about over the years through different team coach certifications, just how different team coaching is to one-on-one coaching that many of us are probably more used to. We'll explore some of the factors that are needed for a successful team coaching program, and then give you an opportunity and an incredibly valuable tool, very practical tool, to help you define internally if team coaching is right for your team or teams that you serve. So let's start off with the chat to hear from our audience. What made you decide to join this webinar? What's going through your mind? Just add a few words in chat, please. It'll help us frame our conversation for you. Organizational transformation, sharpen my saw, reinforce. Yeah, sometimes it feels good when you hear what's going on in the bigger world of talent development that you're doing some of those things, right? It's like, I'm on the right path. Then you might need new needs, expanded needs for the bigger transformation. So thank you for that input. Being asked to do more coaching. Thanks more for joining us. Delighted to hear that you're here. Definitely think that both you and Dwight, and of course you know each other from our conversational intelligence coaching, which Dana was also involved in. Well, I feel like I'm in another universe here. We're all sort of coming together. So what I would encourage you to do is share for the benefit of all the audience, in addition to what Coach Dana and I share. So let's let's move on. I'm just going to share just for about 2-3 minutes. I do this as quick as possible, but I think it is important to ground us on context of Dana and I. Churchill, actually, we've reduced it from 5 to 4. I have to fix that typo there. 4 core signature solutions that we deliver to clients. One-on-one coaching for leadership development. Team coaching, which is what we'll focus on today. We'll focus on one of 4 of our solutions. Building a coaching culture and capability internally with Leader as Great Coach, and then manager, leadership development effectiveness, learning journeys. They're all in essence learning journeys. We don't believe in just that one-off snapshot workshop, because we all are victim then of the forgetting curve and we go back to old habits. So we really focus on customizable learning journeys that can be delivered virtually, in person, a mix, and are accelerated by strengths, what's right with you. Our diverse team of coaches is across Asia, APAC, EMEA, Europe and the Middle East, as well as across North and Latin America. That allows us to scale when we work with global organizations and be agile to your needs and regions. And there visually you can see some of our client logos, just to give you a feel of who we work with. Definitely healthcare, finance, tech, and growing in the government space, as well as other industries. And Coach Dana, please tell us more about yourself. I'm delighted you're with us today.
It's a pleasure. So my practice, the practice that I work with Churchill, is around leadership and team for performance. In my corporate career, my first career, I spent a lot of time working, of course, within teams, leading teams, and was quite struck by the absence sometimes of collaboration, of teams really delivering value to all their stakeholders, and sometimes an absence of leadership, because people are doing the best they can with what they know. So my work is really focused on working individually with top level executives and senior leadership teams, and making sure that not only are teams performing well and individuals delivering well, but making sure that there is a broader impact upon all the work that you do.
I saw a hand raised from Pat. Pat, can we hear you? Did you want to speak, Pat?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit that. I didn't realize I did.
That's all right. That's all right. It's like when I lie on the button on the airplane, right? And I call the attendant. I feel like I didn't mean to disturb you. No problem, Pat. All right. I'm going to put you back on mute. But that's how easy it is. If you want to say something, just request and I will give you the power of the microphone. Thank you, Dana. My role, and I just want to thank Dana not only for being here, but the great work she does with Churchill clients across the board. So thank you so much. My role is not in delivering, it's in running the business, which means I'm usually the first point of call that a client speaks to with their initial need. And then I work with them to what we call in coaching double click, to go deeper and broader of what that need really looks like at a less symptom but real fundamental level, and the impact of that, and what a transformational change would look like if we put a solution in place, and then to share some of what we do to see if it's a good fit. And then I get a good idea then what amazing coaches to bring in. So Dana's definitely one of the team coaches that we bring in globally to do amazing work. And so I'm always involved early on, and then I take a back seat because we have coaches way better than me and I'm not needed anymore. So I get to do the running of the business. I'm always in learning mood, and no surprise, definitely a lifelong leader. So I learn from doing these interview approach webinars with our coaches. So today you'll see an interview style. We'll use chat, maybe a poll, to allow you to share your experience and your voice to be heard. And again, ask me to unmute you for any questions or comments you want to say. Please don't hesitate to want to share a thought or an idea. Your input is as valuable as Dana or mine. All right. So conceptually, I was having a little moan to Dana, not more than like 20 minutes ago, of why more organizations don't fundamentally and broadly and proactively invest in team development, right? Most companies have figured out a leadership development program, leadership framework of expectations and capabilities, and they make some of that mandatory and etc. to develop the individual. But very rarely do we see an organization that says we have to develop our teams, not just when the team's stuck, not just when the team's brand new and we need them to bond, but proactively. And yet, teams is where the work happens. Think about how many teams you're on, right? We talk about collaboration, we talk about innovation, we talk about diversity, but we never put the fundamentals and support around teams to help them thrive. So this is why on team performance, because it's critical for business performance. And it rarely does a team just get good at being an effective team just over time. It takes a long time to get good at it that way. So there are better ways. So what we're sharing with you here, and please resonate in chat, you don't have to type out the whole sentence, maybe put the number for speed, are common pain points that clients share with us when they're trying to solve team problems. So I'm just going to be quiet, give you a minute to read, and pop the numbers that resonate in the chat. And Dana, feel free to do the same.
Jane, you're on mute.
See, this is why I can never do webinars on my own. Thank you, Dana, for having my back there.
International symbol.
All right, so we have 8, 11, 2. I'm clicking too many buttons here. Oh, I've got all the icons open. All right. So you can all see chat. We're seeing 8, 11, 2, 5, 2 again, 9, 4, 6, 11. Right. So the audience is seeing the breadth of what we see from clients. One of the commonalities I'm seeing here on the numbers are 2, 5, 11. So let's just take a quick glance at those. Operating in silos. I know Dana's definitely going to touch on that, what she sees. Matrix teams, that complexity of working across cultures, divisions, levels, departments, very complex nowadays. We hear the word matrix a lot. Team conflicts, lack of synergy. Yeah. So let's get into the solutions. I mentioned earlier we do 4 programs that are around team performance at Churchill. This is the one we call team coaching that we're going to go deep on today. The others are the 5 functions of the team, which use the Patrick Lencioni 5 dysfunctions as a foundational program. And then team bonding, which is a learning series which really bonds the team as well as helps them work better together. Then a team accelerator, which is more around project teams, sprint teams, agile teams. So this really is just highlighting for you for team coaching. This is probably positioned better with your most important teams. It's a bigger investment, and that might be for you exec teams, HR teams, and you'll see as we go through it some of the reasons for that. So over the next 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to ask Dana questions, and she is going to share her insights. So the first question for Dana is, what is the value of team coaching? And then link that to why it's growing and how we measure success, please.
Sure. I would say team coaching is like a very powerful approach to accelerate a team's ability to not only just perform, but to also to create more value with and for the shareholders they serve. So certainly team performance means this idea of delivering tangible results. It also means how they operate together as a group. And it also means, though, the team can't just serve itself and feel great about how it's performing. It really is, who are they serving? And what do those stakeholders experience in terms of the value the team delivers? What we see in a lot of organizations is a lot of siloed work, especially at the senior leadership level, where people are just reporting in their own functional teams. Are not really a concise of one team at the top. Matrix organizations are becoming more and more common, which means that there are dotted lines and sometimes straight lines, but multiple directions that people have to influence and get work done through others. And then, of course, we have this whole VUCA world, right? Volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity, where, COVID's really put us all to the test here. So we've all been catapulted and forced to really try to navigate all this change. And I think the biggest thing that is important is that when people are stressed or navigating change, sometimes they turn within, and teams do this too. So they tend to just go into survival mode. And what a team coach can do is actually to engage the team and not only the work they're doing, because it is very much focused on business performance and results, but also having a conversation and getting them to think more broadly about who are they serving? How are they engaging? What are the expectations? Does everyone actually align to the same purpose? So it is a growth accelerator, and success is actually determined not just by delivering on your KPIs or your OKRs. It really is about measuring with data how effectively your team is delivering value with and for the stakeholders. So we usually collect that data at a few points in the team coaching engagement.
Thank you, Dana. And my experience tells me that the senior leaders in the organization want data as much as anyone, right? They want Absolutely. That hard data, not just hypotheticals. And so when we do these team coaching programs, it truly is customizable, like all of our full programs. And I think the data that maybe you're referring to, Dana, is in the initial analysis phase, but then also collecting data as we go. Definitely tying the coaching directly to the business need that's on their desk, right? That's on the table for them, their KPIs, but also having, like you said, those stop points along the way to make sure that, are we making progress? Are we making change? Is it affecting our team positively? Is it affecting our stakeholders? And is it affecting our end user, our performance for our customers? And so we take this 4-step approach, and the sort of the analysis reflection really is weaved through all 4. The upfront, the sort of the prepping analysis phase, the design phase, when we design the program to fit this unique team's needs, the delivery when the actual coaching is happening, as well as reflection points and final reflection. So the data goes through it, right, Dana?
Well, the data is critical. I mean, we want to measure what's the baseline at the beginning, and certainly there are points to measure throughout, but at the end, it's like, what is the impact? Ultimately, team coaching empowers a team to embed their own ways of working that is sustainable over time. This isn't a bunch of just workshops, and that's a distinctive difference. This is sustainable performance enhancement.
So if it's not a bunch of workshops, can you tell us a little of what it is?
Yeah, I would say once the data collection phase, the analysis phase is done, and there's been a collaboration between the team leader, the team, and the team coach on what that whole interface looks like, the menu of options on how a team coach can engage with the team is definitely being a part of their business as usual meetings, shadowing, observing, helping the team to actually take notice of how they're operating and not just the work itself, their interactions within. It could also be observing any stakeholder meetings. Now, the other interesting thing about the observational options is that now with Zoom or any other virtual platform, you can also just record those sessions for the coach to potentially review later. But it's very easy to participate as a coach and to be that fly in the wall, to give dynamic, real-time feedback and have conversation. So in addition to the business as usual meetings, it can be some facilitated conversations where the team actually gets their head up from the work they're doing and actually has conversations around who are their stakeholders they're serving, what is working well, what is not working well, and actually how can we work better together and with our stakeholders.
Yeah, I love the fact that you are so focused on sort of the end user, the stakeholders, right? Because a team can go through any type of program and say, hey, we're so much better. And the stakeholders are like, huh, don't see a difference, right?
This is really more than just the team feeling good. If the team's feeling great and like, we're the best, but all of their stakeholders have a negative experience or don't view the team that they're actually delivering value, then that's a big miss.
Right. And that's why the stakeholder focus that you mentioned multiple times is so critical. That was the best practice I'd never heard of before. So thank you for sharing the recording of some meetings to allow you to sort of team coach using the recording with the team is a great best practice. I love that idea. And also that the coaching happens while the team are doing the work. So it's not like we're pulling busy executive teams away. The coach is inserting. And as part of the design phase, there's what we call contracting, where the coach will work with the team and usually HR as well to agree on what are the rules of engagement of this coaching engagement. So what can the coach do and not do? What's the team's responsibility, etc., so that those rules engagements are adhered to and everyone feels very safe and comfortable. All right, let's go to another question 2. So usually when we get to hear of a need, it's from the exec themselves or the senior leader or HR saying, I need help for an important team. And so what's your experience of what is important to them when it comes to team coaching?
Well, I would say certainly business leaders and executives, VP and higher, they're often looking at the organization from an enterprise, broader perspective. So they certainly want teams to deliver on their value, but they're also looking at a macro level. So making sure that decisions are made that serve the greater organization, making sure that allocation of resources is done in a way that serves a greater organization. And I would say that sometimes one function may need to give up some of their resources if it better serves the greater good as a temporary measure. So those types of enterprise-wide thinking, really systemic thinking, is what the executives have in mind. I would say, and layered to that, HR also offers that supportive lens of making sure that we are looking at engagement, collaboration. We want people to feel good about coming to work and offering value. We want people to be engaged, to feel that they're contributing. So I just noticed in the chat that you had asked about, what are some ways you can measure value? There are some real proven, scientifically valid assessments that can be used for teams that engage the stakeholders as well. So you get not only quantitative data, you can get some qualitative data. Often what we also do as part of our data gathering is around interviews and getting rich qualitative perspectives. So when you're measuring value, you need to have a baseline and compare that too, but you're keeping in mind all those things that the sponsors want. The bottom line is the team coach doesn't decide this. It is a transparent, trust-built relationship that we have with all the executives. If there's an executive sponsor or the board involved, the team leader, the HR leader that might be involved. So everybody's very clear about what do we really want? What are the areas of work that need to happen? And what is your definition of success? Because we need to have people very specifically outlined through behaviors and actions or other kind of measurable data points. Are we actually making improvement? This isn't, as you say, just feeling good. It's actually knowing and proving that you've made a difference.
Thank you, Dana. And one word comes to mind as you're sharing some of that was alignment, the critical alignment between the exec, who's usually the leader of the team, the HR partner that will continue to support the team after the team coach, the external team coach has left. And that is like an extra sort of cherry on the top of the cake, in that if you really partner with the HR leader, they will learn from the experience and continue to support the team with some of the best practices they learned from the Churchill coach beyond the formal coaching engagement. And then the third people to be aligned are the stakeholders, the people the team serve. And of course, the team members need to be part of this. Everyone needs to be on the same page of how we will measure success and get really clear on what that looks like. It's not just words, it's like examples of we'll move from this to this. This is how behavior will change. This is how our mindset will change. This is how the impact on who we serve will change. So it is important to slow down up front and get that level of alignment. The other thing that came to mind as you were speaking, Dana, was, and I hear this a lot from HR when they first come to me, is that ripple effect that senior teams have on the organization. So make the assumption that your organization is pretty complex, somewhat matrixed, and as certain behavior happens on the senior team probably aren't as aware of how much the rest of the organization are watching them, and everything they do, everything they say, everything they don't do or don't say is felt, that ripple effect. And so even something that isn't working well on an exec team can be magnified across the organization. So it's truly like such an important investment and getting the change that the organization need right through alignment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, let's move to this one. I have to excuse me a little. Someone is knocking on my door. I'm in a hotel, and I'm going to have to go see who it is. So as I do that and they stop the distraction, start to share the answer to this question, Dana. How is team coaching different to one-on-one coaching, please?
Do that. Do you mind just advancing one slide? Because I think
Sure.
It just speaks to the whole point here. So we know that typically when we're working with executive leaders one-on-one, we're very attentive to what does that individual executive need or want. We are sometimes also asking what their sponsor or their direct manager wants, but it is very much about that individual. And I would say the scope of impact is somewhat limited. And after the coaching, the person goes back into the system that they're working within. So what I love about team coaching is it actually takes a much more systemic view of the entire enterprise and the organization. So we are actually not only working with the team, and we look at the team as not just a group of individuals, it is one collective whole. So it really is different from team coaching that way. We look at the collective whole. All the conversations and everything is very transparently discussed as a team. And we are also asking good questions about the system that they operate within. So what do your stakeholders actually require of this team? That sometimes if you ask different members of the team, they may have different views. How aligned is the team on its actual shared purpose? And how is the team actually operating, and what's the dynamic within? What are their meeting habits or relationship dynamics? How do they navigate conflict and decision-making? And how strong and collaborative is the team in terms of proactively engaging with all their stakeholders? I know we keep talking about stakeholders, but I want to also point out that it is critical for any team to actually map out their stakeholders. And that's an interesting exercise too. Sometimes teams are only attentive to, okay, we've got to deliver this to the senior leadership team. But what about the customers? What about the other employees, especially as a senior leadership team? As you said, Jane, there is this cascade of behaviors. So how is it directly affecting the employees overall? And I think the biggest piece around team coaching is it is looking for sustainable systems for the team to be able to coach itself after the team coaching engagement. So what that means is that we help the team embed learning processes, ways of reflecting, debriefing, both successes and maybe things that didn't go so well, so that they can continually be agile and continually learn and adapt. So, in essence, when we work with a team, we're also working with a lot of the key stakeholders as well. So the scope and scale of impact is quite significant. You're on mute, Jane.
Yeah, my mouse was getting a bit wild then. It's interesting. I'll share just like my personal experience in that I've been a leader coach for over 20 years and an executive coach around 10, and a team coach for a couple of years. And prior to going through multiple team certifications as a coach, I thought one-on-one coaching was quite transferable. to team coaching. Boy, was I wrong. It is a whole, it's like a different level of skill set, behavior, things that we have to be aware of as a coach. And it's really quite eye-opening. So I know that you've been through an ongoing certifications, Dana. So you are very qualified to help people understand what team coaching is. It's a complexity of being aware of so many different dynamics that are going on when you're in the room with the team, right? It's not just about coaching the team leader. That has some impact, but that has limited impact. It's about looking at the system and recognizing habits that the team don't even know they've got, right?
Yes.
And ways of doing things that they've always done that they don't realize are getting in the way. It's almost like what got you here won't get you there. And it takes the coach, a really sort of objective, trained person, to shine the light on those, to bring that awareness to the table, to make the transformation that's needed. And the assessments help. It's really that being in the moment with the team, why they're doing their work, that is incredibly valuable for the team and rewarding for everyone involved. And there's one thing I've asked a couple of teams in my work, and it's like, okay, so how do you make decisions around here? And both times I've asked that question, they're like, good question. How do we make decisions around here? But to be fair, that was one of the things that came up in their assessment that they were struggling with. To the rest of the organization, they were slow decision makers. They were unclear decision makers. And so the rest of the organization was working in some sort of ambiguity and confusion. And it was caused by this team's inability to make more effective decisions. But they'd been working in this tradition of not really having decision-making strategies. And it took the coach to shine the light on that. So hopefully that gives you an example to illustrate. All right, let's move on. Ivan saying many teams find out after taking assessment that they are in fact not so much as a team, but a working group. Yes. And I have to be honest, in my experience, I've thought I was going to start working with a team, found that out. And when we found that out, we also recognized they didn't need to work as a team. It was their business model allowed them to work as small groups. And so a team coaching approach was not the right solution. So that's a great insert there, Ivan. Is this a real team? Do they have to work together to deliver on outcomes? Or is it a working group and they don't have to? So we're trying to force something that's just not necessary.
Yeah.
All right. What are some of the success factors for a team coaching program? What should we consider, Dana?
Well, I would say engagement with the stakeholders and the key sponsors of this program is critical. Having an engaged team leader who really sees and believes in the opportunity to elevate their team's performance and to have a sustainable curve in which the team is able to actually deliver better results, create more value for everyone they serve. And actually, I would say this all goes to data and feedback from the stakeholders, which we have, I think, on the next slide. The teams don't operate in a vacuum. It really, if a team feels great because they've done their job, they've ticked a box, that really is a very micro view. You want to have more of a systemic view. So how do the stakeholders experience this team? Do you make their jobs easier or more difficult? Does your team actually not only react to stakeholder needs, but actually engage with them and proactively deliver value by maybe discussing what the future needs are? I'm a big believer in this idea of future back and outside in when working with teams, which means, are we serving our stakeholders today? And what might they need tomorrow that we should be thinking about? So thinking about the future coming back, and also outside in is starting first with, what do others expect of our team? What do they need and want? And then, are we actually aligned to that? So having data and feedback from stakeholders that's quantitative and qualitative through assessments, through interviews, through discussions, through observations of actual meetings can actually be very rich. And so therefore, success factors are really to do with a multiple measure points, right? It's not just, we've exceeded our goals by 20%. That is only one piece of data.
Thank you, Dana. And this is definitely a topic where we could spend a lot longer. I think there are certain success factors that we know as team coaches are critical and consistent across teams. And then there's, to your point, the individualized success factors that are important to the team and who they serve. And one of the things that also comes to mind is psychological safety, right? It could be with teams that there isn't safety within the team itself or within team members and the team leader, or if HR is in the room, maybe the dynamic changes. And so making sure up front that certain work is done to make sure the team has what they need to make the most of the coaching experience. I mentioned earlier about contracting. There's a contract, not just a almost financial contract to deliver the scope, but a contracting of what are the rules of how we'll work together. And there are some things that the team leader is accountable for, the team's accountable for, the coach is accountable for, maybe the HR partner's accountable for, and some that we're collective accountable for, just so that we're all clear and comfortable with that. And I think that's almost a really great opportunity early on in the work of the coaching to make sure everyone's voice is heard. And understood and considered. And it can be quite a bonding exercise for the team and also critical to build that psychological safety. So you start to see the weaving in of understanding the diversity of the team and making sure it's included and bonded, as well as making people feel safe so that the rest of the journey, people are open to holding each other accountable, sort of pushing on each other to say it as it really is versus holding back and just trying to be polite, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, to all of that. And I guess the other thing that strikes me, and I'm thinking about a team that I worked with for a year, and at the very beginning, they were on their best behavior when I was around and when I was working with the team. And what struck me is it took time to actually have them do the work when I'm not there, because this is meant to empower the team to coach themselves, to be at their best, to be advocates for each other. So shared leadership, I think, is so critical, and shared accountability for everything we did. So it isn't like the team coach is coming in and doing coaching to them. This is the team coach opening up new doors of communication, shining a light on their current habits that serve them and maybe don't serve them, and challenging them to do better and differently, even when the coach isn't around, right? Because that's 90% of the work. And if a really good coach ultimately drives themselves out of a job, then the team has learned actually to have processes and ways of holding each other accountable that's both supportive and challenging each other.
I love that, because if I'm a executive wanting to invest in my team, you've just given me a big ROI. Right? Yes. My team are going to learn to almost self-coach because of going through the coaching experience with a great team coach. And again, I mentioned about, sort of really partnering with HR, because HR will stay there after we've left to make sure that they are set up to support the team long term. Do you ever have teams want to check in with you? Let's say you've worked with them for a year. Is there any work you do with them after that?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I'll be brought in to do some kind of a sustainment piece. Sometimes we expand on, because it isn't like you have team coaching and you're done. This is a constant journey of evolution. So sometimes teams want to actually have somebody external to the team who isn't biased and have any judgment, with a real systemic view to support them as they continue to elevate. It's like going from good to great on an ongoing basis. So sometimes I'll be brought in to maybe do another check-in with some sponsors or stakeholders. Maybe we'll just do some maintenance sessions, so to speak, and having conversations, or I might be brought in to do some observational coaching.
Yeah.
And I see a question actually here in the chat, which is Patricia's asking, when you have a senior stakeholder who struggles with building or strengthening trust in team coaching, do you offer one-on-one executive coaching as a catalyst for change? And I would say it's yes and. Typically when it comes to team coaching, the trust of and the confidentiality of the team as a whole is important. So sometimes what I will do is I'll partner with another very qualified team coach, and we will jointly work with the team together. So maybe some one-on-one coaching is offered to all the team, or it is not offered to everyone, or maybe it's just to to the team leader. But this idea of making sure that there is honorable confidentiality, so that if there is one-on-one coaching, it doesn't breach any trust. And we also want to make sure that there is support for the individual. So I often will include in team coaching one-on-one check-in. So it may not be as fully robust as a one-on-one executive coaching program. There are modified ways we can do it, but certainly working with various members of the team as we go through, it can be very helpful to understand what's working, what's not. Are they speaking up, or do they feel that it's safe to speak up or not? And making sure that they're also aware of their own contributions. What are your thoughts around that question?
Are you asking Pat or me?
I actually would love to hear from Patricia if Patricia is willing to speak. I'm not sure if Patricia, if you'd like to respond to my comments. You're welcome to.
I'd be glad to. In a large organization, sometimes people move up and maybe they didn't have leadership training, so they have a gap. And that's sometimes what I see is it's not that they're not willing, they just were never properly mentored, coached. So now they're in a new role, and they're struggling to get the team together because maybe they just don't know how to do it. And yet you see value in this person. There's a gap.
Well, we certainly offer one-on-one executive coaching, absolutely, that can support. And certainly when I'm working with a team, I'm also collaborating a lot with the team leader. And that is, Jane, I'm not sure what your comments are around that executive coaching in that particular environment. Sounds like it's the team leader in this case, Patricia, is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... So I think one of the wonderful things that, Pat, you said was they're aware and willing. Right? That's where coaching is at its best, right? And so I think that's where someone in your position as HR is very valuable, because you know the team better than the coach, and maybe have some insight that makes the coaching total engagement even better because of that insight. So absolutely. And it doesn't have to be your 6 to 9 months full coaching engagement. It can be an in the moment coaching of a few sessions to deal with one thing where the leader is very willing. I just want to reinforce what Dana said earlier. What we want to avoid, and this is usually a conversation between HR, the leader, and the coach, is creating anything that will put trust at jeopardy. Mm-hmm. So imagine a situation where Coach Dana is coaching the whole team in the moment, like the whole team together, but she's also coaching the team leader. What might go through the mind of team members? Right.
And, oftentimes a team lead may get promoted and they're very technical. They've never managed people. So there's this big shift higher up, and they miss some things along the way. So that's
a prime example of someone who's ripe, if they're open and aware, or open and interested to getting support, of having one-on-one executive coaching. And if they are leading a team where there's team coaching, that could be 2 separate coaches potentially.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that the trust is kept intact.
Yeah, that's important.
And one thing we've learned as a best practice is have those two coaches work together. Again, anything that happens in the actual one-on-one coaching is kept confidential, but let's say that leader is working on how to build trust with others with his one-on-one coach, and then the coaches, he knows he's given permission to the coaches to talk about his learning goals. When he's then in front of the team and the team coach is present, the team coach can make observations and give in the moment feedback to the coach, to the leader at the end of, say, the meeting. And so there's ways to align for synergy. But again, those have to be discussed up front so everyone is comfortable and that psychological safety is preserved. Does that help, Pat?
A lot. Thank you. Perfect.
You're welcome. All right. Let's I think this is the final question, is is team coaching right for my team? If I was thinking that, Dana, that, okay, this sounds really interesting. I've learned a lot. I think I've got a team in mind or teams in mind. How would I know if team coaching is right?
Well, usually the first place we're looking at is how critical is this team? What is the breadth and scope of the impact of the work that this team does? And, typically we're always looking at the top. And Patricia, you had said senior executives are role models of change, right? So everything the senior leadership or the executive team does is magnified. So often we're looking at, is this a team that has a lot at stake where people are depending on how this team performs? That can be a very ripe criteria. And certainly we tend to look first at executive teams, senior leadership teams, or boards to make sure that from a systemic perspective, that team is operating at its best and serving everybody around them. What would you offer to that, Jane, or add to that?
I think I'd reinforce what you've said because of this scalable ripple effect that the exec teams have. And as you said, what work are they doing? How big is that impact? What level of responsibility do you need them to have, right, in the future? The world isn't getting simpler, it's getting more complex. So how does the most important team in your organization need to be set up for success, not just to succeed today, but to be ready to succeed tomorrow? So this is why it's so important at the top. And yet, look at this data. This is data by TCI, one of the certifications that I have, and we use one of their set of global measurement tools, assessments, to measure the leader and how they view the team, how the team views the team, and how stakeholders view the team. And through all their research over decades, they found that only 10% of teams rate themselves as high performing. So imagine if you looked at your organization, the CFO looked at your organization and found that 90% of your assets were underperforming. And those assets were where most of the work was happening, taking place, getting done. Wouldn't you take team performance and the investment in team talent more seriously? So if you need data to provide and make your leaders think about, is team coaching right for them? Come to us. We'll give you some data that you can use internally, or we're happy to get on a call with them to see if team coaching is right for you. And so what goes through your mind, audience? I think I can take everyone off mute. I'd love to do that because we have such talent on the team here. Let me see if I can do that and have you all talk to us. Allowed to talk, allowed to talk, allowed to talk. All right, I'm giving you all the power here.
We'd love to hear, if you had to kind of, in your own mind, come up with might you figure it out, or have your team figure out if they might be open or ripe for team coaching? What are the cues or clues?
So maybe I'm always the first one.
Love it, Ivan.
Okay, nice to see you, Jane.
Nice to see you too, Ivan. We've been in the same certification program.
I'm glad that you mentioned TCI in particular, because as you might surely know, that Philip unfortunately passed away.
Yes, the founder.
So he did great work here. And yes, I think we have never enough good assessments for getting the necessary data, as you mentioned, Dana. And so, for example, now I work, among other things, also with EQ. Mm-hmm. So there is assessment where you can measure the EQ of the team, which is a great addition to TCI measurement and to talent measurement. So, I mean, the more perspectives we have on teams, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it sounds like assessments, and there are a variety of assessments that can be used, is one of the ways, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would like to stress it that maybe the assessments are the best tool because they eliminate at least part of the subjectivity of the people. Mm-hmm. And it is better measurement, similarly like psychometric assessments for individuals. So it makes it easier to for people to think about it once they see the data.
Well, can I tell a real quick story here? I don't know if any of you have read the book called Switch. It's about change management. And there's a story in there of this leader that wants to influence their peers about investing in all things, better price for rubber gloves. This is not COVID related. This was years ago. And it just wasn't making any progress. And what they found was in Korea, they were paying a lot for a pair of these rubber disposable gloves. And across America, they were paying all different prices. In Germany, and he's just like, we're wasting so much money. We have to save money. And he could not get anyone's attention to make a change. So he bought all these gloves into a global meeting with a price tag on every one. And then the attention that got, because he put literally data in front of everyone, the decision was made at the meeting and everyone invested in the same price, low price gloves, right? So I think that's what I thought of as you were speaking there, Ivan, is let the data speak for itself. Dana.
Yeah, I was just going to say that data is especially important so that especially at the executive and senior levels, they don't want, just some touchy-feely subjective sort of assessment. And sometimes there are clues and cues. A team may be rich for team coaching because they see that they're having troubles making decisions, or they see that when they try to offer newer different ideas for innovation or having healthy debate, that they can't do that. It turns into a fight. Or very Canadian, I'm going to make a bit of a Canadian joke here. We're a passive aggressive. So we say yes in the meeting, and then all of our behaviors after the meeting say no. So these can be clues and cues for some dysfunction that can be enhanced and improved with team coaching.
And often the team can't see it for themselves, right? All of us have to strive to build greater self-awareness because our intent is often different to our impact. And so I think sometimes we just the team can't see it. But those that the team serves, those that report to the team, HR, they are like, shining in bright lights for them. So I think that reinforces the importance of the first steps of change management in the change management tools that we use is awareness. You have to build awareness, and that data in itself might create desire to want to take action and invest in developing the team. But without that awareness, you can sell a team program or an idea till you're sort of like, and it just doesn't work because we haven't raised that level of awareness.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go.
Something, and you hit it, awareness and desire, and then you have to do it. You can get all the decks, all the workshops prepared, but people have to go out and do it. And sometimes they're just hesitant, and they use, we're overwhelmed with too much. And it's like, well, what would stop you? What is stopping you from having a workshop with your people? So it's that sense of it's not going to be perfect. And, you said the VUCA world, that's absolutely true. So a group, no matter how large or small, they have to be the catalyst to do it. And then I like to embed storytelling, simple little stories, little conversations, and people are less hesitant to try something new and to just do it, because a lot of the people that I work with, it's not always HR doing these workshops. It needs to be the team leads, and they're not all at that same level of confidence and maturity to just do it.
I think it's also acknowledging that it's a journey. This is not just come and do a couple workshops and you're good. This is actually supporting them on a learning process for themselves.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really good points there, Pat, is comfort level, right? Sometimes a problem has to be so big before we actually will make the leap, right? So it is hard. It is hard. So I think awareness is definitely proven in change management is where can we shine the light before we even figure out the how to, right? How do we shine the light to give them, and then find ways that they're most comfortable with, options to help them move forward. The one thing that I didn't plan to pop in here, Dana, but Ivan's and Pat's comments have made me think, is I do the team assessment for the leader of a team for free with a debrief. And Dana, if I do that because of this webinar with anyone, then we bring you in and we would do a joint debrief. And what that means is we give a free measure. It costs nothing for the leader apart from 15, 20 minutes to take the assessment, and then an hour of really free coaching with a debrief. And HR is welcome to join as well. So that's a great starting point of building awareness. And it's the leader's view of the team, not the full team's view of the team. And it looks at 14 sustainable success factors, which we'll show you in a moment. And that's free of charge. So if that's of interest to you, let us know and we can certainly set that up.
Okay.
So I want to shine the light on Dana again because she's so generous. Dana, you've willingly put together a bit of a customized set of tools here, which will go out to everyone after this webinar. Tell the group what they see, high level, the value.
Sure. So I, as Ivan may know, through the systemic process that Dr. Peter Hawkins has pioneered. He's one of the Global Team Coaching Institute's faculty and certainly a pioneer since the 70s on team coaching. So he's ahead of the game. I've adapted some of the language and processes to create two tools. The one that you see on the left is essentially a one page that any team leader or an HR professional could engage a team in a shared discussion about the 5 different disciplines or elements of a successful and high value creating team. And on the right is actually the first page of a multi-page questionnaire. Again, came from Peter Hawkins. It just modified to make the language a little more simple, that a team could individually complete and then come together and discuss the results. Again, it's always identifying what are the team's strengths and what are the things that we could do better or differently to really make a difference, not only for how we deliver results, but how we create value.
Thank you, Dana. This is very generous to accelerate the ability of teams to start the conversation and start building that awareness. We often get asked, what does a team coaching program look like? So I'm going to give you the 15-second here. It's usually 6 months of coaching with the upfront work we talked about of psychological bonding and contracting. So it's usually about 8 months. And it's a blend of coaching, assessments. It can be individual micro training sessions if the team needs certain things, like they need to learn how to make decisions better. That might be an offshoot of the actual coaching. But the coaching actually happens during the work. It's not pulling teams away. It's the coach goes into the team meetings. And the assessment that we use, one of them measures the 14, the TCI assessment. And it's 7 of the factors are based on productivity, like what we do together, and the 7 on positivity of how we do it together, like the trust and the respect and the communication. So hopefully very quickly that models a sample of what a team coaching can look like. With that said, we're out of time. So if you feel that team coaching might be for you or your leader, we can set up 30 minutes with Dana and I to talk about your specific need. There's no commitment. You can come talk to us, and if you decide not to do it or do things internally, that's fine too. This is our give back. But if you do decide to work with us, this gives you a clear next step. And any final thoughts from our audience or questions?
Fabulous session. Thank you. And I like the approach very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Comments. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for contributing so well. And Dana, huge thank you to you for bringing your expertise and time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
If there are no questions, I'll hang on for a minute just in case. Next one in the series is on the 16th of March. This one is very much for project agile, very busy teams that need better ways of working together to remove roadblocks and address the work that's on their desk. Come meet Coach Renee as she talks about this program. And thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Nice to see you, Ivan, or hear you.
Stay safe. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay safe.